I want you to be nice until it's time to not be nice.
Well, how are we supposed to know when that is?
You won't. I'll let you know. You are the bouncers, I am the cooler. All you have to do is watch my back and each other's. Take out the trash.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to the blockbuster new release wall of our memory, grab a copy off the shelf, pop it in the old VCR, and see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
Yo.
And together we're here to help you navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane. So Mike, we're going to cover an interesting movie this week, Roadhouse.
Yes, very interesting.
We might know it as its working title, If Leonard Skinner Ruled the World.
Well, it's the rowdiest bar south of the Mason-Dixon line, as at least the tagline says. And I have a little problem with that, but I'm sure if Kansas City, Missouri is considered South Mason-Dixon, technically, maybe.
Technically, yeah. This movie's been in the news lately because lots of people our age are upset that this is getting remade. The reimagined Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal is on Amazon Prime as we speak, and it hurt. It got a lot of people of our generation really butthurt about it.
Really?
Yeah, they're not happy, and there's an interesting social phenomenon going on with these type of movies, right? So millennials and Gen Z's may be looking at us and saying, go to bed, old man, or okay, boomer, that we get upset that these things get remade, right?
Right.
Like it's been a common theme that we get upset when we see stuff of our youth getting remade, and we get frustrated by it. For those younger generations that don't understand it, your day's coming. You don't know the pain because it really hasn't happened to you yet.
But Justin, what do they have to hang on to?
Well,
look at it. This is why we have our podcast. Look at this body of work we've gone through. I mean, and there's some real stinkeroonies in this, some of these episodes we do, but
yeah,
these are iconic, pioneering type of movies that are they're ripe for the copying just because they were so of their age and so good. Even the movie we were talking about today, it's not necessarily a good movie, but my goodness, how many people of our generation saw it and are like,
sure.
Is stamped on them, It's like, what could you say about the generation today? I mean, there's not that many movies that come out that they can just say, yeah, that represents us. I mean, it's almost like you have to go back into the past and redo some of the movies we saw and, put their millennial stamp on it. And they can call it their own,
Well, I don't know about all that, Mike, but I know it's going to get really bad because this generation is going to get stuck having Harry Potter remade. Their parents read to them that they grew up with.
Yeah,
that's going to be their part of their childhood that gets ripped away, and they can feel a good feeling. So I don't think enough people know about this yet, but there should be more clamoring, more pearl clutching. But I think I don't know.
Pearl clutch. I'm okay with it most of the time because I don't have, me pretty well. I'm not one of these guys that gets attached to a fandom and gets, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what they did to so-and-so. There are certain, anybody who's listening to every one of our podcasts will know there's certain things that have triggered me, like, the Wild Wild West movie, for instance. There was no reason to make that movie. Or there was a movie there that could be made. It was just botched so terribly. It sours you on the whole franchise in a way. And so I can kind of see how people can get affected by seeing some of their, beloved childhood memories or what they, saw in the past get kind of twisted a little bit and ruined. Yeah. And I sympathize. I just can't empathize as much.
Well, speaking about twisted and ruined, let's talk about this movie, Mike. So this was directed by a guy named Rowdy Harrington. And I did say Rowdy Harrington.
Rowdy. Not Rowdy Yates, huh? It's Rowdy Harrington. Okay.
Or Rowdy Burns.
Yeah, Rowdy Burns.
Or Rowdy Piper. He's famous for the movie Striking Distance. He also did like 3 James Spader movies. I don't. You tell me. I don't get that. Huh. It was written by a guy named R. Lance Hill It's still undetermined whether that R stands for rowdy or not. Let's just assume it does. He did The Evil Men Do with Charles Bronson.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That was a kind of a disturbing movie.
Out for Justice with Steven Seagal. And he also penned the new Roadhouse, and he also did the sequel, Roadhouse 2, back in the day.
Oh my gosh, I forgot there was a sequel.
The less said about that, probably the better.
Okay.
It's also co-written by Hilary Hankin, who did a really kind of cool movie. She wrote Romeo's Bleeding. She actually got an Oscar nomination for Wag the Dog. She's a screenwriter for that.
Wow.
So this was released in May of 1989, May 19th to be exact. It had a budget of $17 million.
My goodness, they did a lot with that. I got to give them credit.
Yeah.
I mean, the way they were able to capture the essence of Missouri by filming in California, that was
yeah.
You can tell the budget was cut a little bit for that, but hey, look, location was a little bit easier, I guess.
Yeah. So speaking of inconsistencies like that, Mike, why don't you talk about the cast that kind of brought this, let's say, Shakespearean plot to life?
Well, you have Patrick Swayze doing. When we saw him last, he was playing a philosophical surfer in Point Break, and this movie, his role in this kind of reminded me of a lot of it.
They could be the same character almost.
Yeah, in a way. He even has a kind of a dark side to him, just like Bodhi does, and it's interesting the way it's very well done. I got to say, for his role in this is perfect. I can't complain about it. You have the femme fatale, who's played by Kelly Lynch. I know she was in some independent movies. I couldn't think of anything else she was in other than this movie. She plays a skinny doctor who with a really good tan in this movie, and very I don't know, just I don't let the less said the better. But
for what it's worth, my wife Christine, my betrothed, she's the doppelganger for Kelly Lynch at this time. They both looked at almost the same in the same time period.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she's in the movie somehow.
Yeah.
She plays the niece of Red, who's my favorite character in the movie, but that's an aside. I'll get to Red in a little bit.
Oh, I love Red. Yeah.
Yeah. You have the bad guy played by Ben Gazarra, mostly known for being on Broadway. Not too many movies in his resume that I can think of. This was his. It's funny though, because not having seen Roadhouse before, I knew Big Lebowski really well, and basically Ben Gazarra plays the same guy in Big Lebowski as Jackie Treehorn, and it's just funny to see that role and like, oh yeah, but in this movie he's playing kind of instead of a porn king, he's playing a mafia king of this town in Rat's Ass, Missouri, and I love his character named Brad. And then nothing puts fear in the heart like a mafia don with the name Brad Wesley.
Has anybody ever said, "Oh man, Brad is going to get us"?
Oh, Brad, yeah, I know, right? Mr. Wesley's going to kick our ass.
Brad Wesley.
Yes, remind me of Carrie Elways. But yeah, you have Sam Eliot, who plays a non-Western movie for once. Another Big Lebowski reference, by the way. He is the bouncer buddy, Garrett Wade of Dalton, the Patrick Swayze character. He kind of lays the groundwork for something, some kind of dark past they had, but they go all the way back to I don't know, was it Albuquerque? Where they got a bottle put over his head. Yeah, so there you go.
Wow, you paid way more attention than I did.
I'm sorry. I really got into it. I will say, and we'll get to this at the end of this, but this movie does, except for a little lull between the second and third act, it held my attention the whole way, and it was, it's pretty well paced. Those are pretty much your core characters. You had the guy who ran the Double Deuce, played by Kevin Teig, I want to say. Yeah. I never, but he's always usually plays a nasty character. I expected him in this movie to take like a heel turn somewhere. Never did, so I was like kind of shocked. I knew him from the 8 Men Out, and he was the bad dad and Lost. He was like John Locke's dad. And,
oh yeah, that's right.
Did him wrong in there, and a couple other things. But I knew him from Emergency. I don't know if you ever watched that TV show in the '70s, but he was actually a good guy in that. And one of those shows that just probably nobody's always ever watched it, but Emergency, check it out. It's a good show. Then you had a lot of ancillary characters that just came here and went. Keith David's in this movie for some reason when he's I guess he was priming for his role in Platoon or being mean general in Armageddon. We know him the most for being in the most famous fight in cinema history, and They Live. So
Yes, we'll get to that here in a little bit. That's good.
Red West is in this movie. Former Elvis Presley valet and bodyguard,
Memphis Mafia guy, right?
Yeah. Believe it or not, though, he was he got his start being in one of the tough guys in the Wild Wild West TV show. He was always kind of in the back. He was always a member of a gang, and he was always getting punched. He was really good at taking a punch from James Conrad, or fake punch. And he was great in that show. But you could always tell he was a bad. You knew a scene was going to show up with a bar fight in it. If you saw Red West kind of leaning back or sitting at a poker table or something, like, oh yeah, there's gonna be a fight if Red's involved. I can't forget. He's not really a good actor, but he's kind of a centerpiece of the movie, and it's Jeff Healey who plays Cody. Yeah, he's the lead of this little 3-piece band that plays the double deuce, and he's blind, but he was a great guitarist. And some people might know him from his, he had a really popular song called Angel Eyes about this time in 88, 89. And I know my wife loved it at the time. And it was a flash in the pan. Like, he was really big there, after this movie came out, and then just kind of, faded away. But I don't know what happened to him after that.
He passed away at 40 years old, actually, Mike.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
That did fade away. You're right. So
sad. Now I feel bad. But let me end this on a happier note. We have Terry Funk.
Yes, we do
in this cast, and unfortunately, I believe he's passed away also. Right? And he's
just last year. Yeah, about 6 months ago. Yeah,
and he's pretty good at acting. I was kind of shocked that, I know he comes from a long career of acting and wrestling, but I don't want to
He was friggin' Robert Duvall in this movie.
I know, right? He played a pretty good role. I like his little bouncer role there, but that's pretty much your cast there. And
all right, I love when you go deep, Mike. Thank you. So just a few other notes on that cast and the subsequent making of the movie. So Patrick Swayze turned down Predator 2 to take this movie.
Wow. Was he going to be I guess he was going to be the Danny Glover?
He was going to be the Danny Glover. Shout out to our friend Molly, who brought that movie into our purview. Sam Eliot says this is the movie he's most recognized for, even to this day.
That's crazy.
Kelly Lynch's role was originally going to be played by Annette Bening, but she, I guess, figured out that it was not her caliber type of movie. He talked about Terry Funk, the NWA wrestler. Also a cameo here, not really a cameo, but the punk rock band X, legendary band X, John Doe plays this.
He's one of the bad guys that
plays the sleazy bartender on the take.
Okay. And the nephew.
You mentioned Armageddon with Keith David. The bad guy here, Marshall Teague, who's the
he looked like
Jimmy.
He like a military guy in one of the movies.
He was. He had military background, a lot of martial arts training. He loved his denim, of course.
Yeah.
But he was also gay. Yeah.
He had a little bear tooth too, or a little bear claw.
Yes.
On his little necklace. He like that. Yeah.
He was also an Armageddon, Mike. He was one of the generals too.
Okay. So, there you go.
And I want to just point out one guy in the cast, Mike. Maybe you just didn't get to him. I'm talking about Sunshine Perkins, who played
Emmett.
The old guy Emmett. The Uncle Jesse type.
He was a ray of sunshine.
I was just curious about what the hell this guy was all about. So I looked at his acting page on IMDb, and here's the last roles he played. He died at 97 years old. He's in over 150 movies.
Jeez.
But here's the type of roles he was typecast for. So, vagrant, hobo, drunk cowboy, moonshiner, old drunkard, and Merle.
There you go.
But you don't know this Merle, Mike. You don't know where he makes his money.
No, I don't know where he makes his money. But Emmett seems to be a good name for his character.
I love that guy.
Typecast.
Some other notes about the movie. All the actors did most of their own stunts, and it shows. There's very few bewigged stuntmen here. About 55 stuntmen total worked on this movie. It was really just to showcase this Hollywood stunt work.
Yeah.
They had a very deceptive marketing campaign for this. If you remember, Mike, Dirty Dancing came out a couple years earlier and really fanned the flames of most women at that era. They were all in love with Johnny Castle. So the studio decided they would kind of co-opt some of his popularity by marketing this movie as a little softer, almost romantic type comedy. So if you see some of the early trailers and the marketing material, this
Wow.
movie was really deceptively sold to the public to get the women audience in there. And then, of course,
Yeah.
they get to see Johnny Castle ripping out a guy's throat and a lot of gratuitous nudity.
I was going to say the very first scene is a woman driving up in a Ferrari and like focusing on her ass, and it says Roadhouse.
Roadhouse, yeah. So a little nefarious start there. The original cut of this movie was 3 hours and 20 minutes long. Like, I would love to see the stuff they cut out for this. Patrick Swayze had both of his groins insured by Lloyd's of London for some reason during this movie. It just was this weird fact that I thought was funny. Kelly Lynch is married to Mitch Glazer, who was the writer of Scrooge, starring Bill Murray. And every time Bill Murray sees this movie on TV, where he sees the scene where Kelly Lynch is making love to Patrick Swayze, Bill Murray feels compelled to call Mitch Glazer and tease him about it and make fun of it. So I just thought that was neat. So this was 1989. So it's a good year for movies, Mike. We had Batman, of course. That was the biggest one that year, followed by Look Who's Talking, Back to the Future 2, Ghostbusters 2, The Abyss, and Turner and Hooch. This Roadhouse, this version of Roadhouse didn't make it. It was only the 44th highest one. Did not do very well at the box office. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Ended up being just slightly behind Weekend at Bernie's and just slightly ahead of Do the Right Thing that year. It premiered on May 19th along with Fright Night 2, so another sequel. In the theaters prior to that, you had Earth Girls Are Easy and Return of Swamp Thing. So a lot of sequels.
What's scary is I can look at a list of like the top 50, and it's like I think I've saw probably 49 of them from that year. It's just crazy.
I saw the same thing. Then the next weekend, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade came out, just kind of took care of the rest of the box office for the rest of the summer. The music scene, Mike, we always like to talk about the music scene during the time these movies were out. You had Forever Your Girl by Paul Abdul, Joy and Pain by Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock, Mama I'm Coming Home by Cinderella, Soldier of Love by Donny Osmond. Mike, remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He actually had a video, or he had a like promotion for that song where he was like on a beach doing push-ups and trying to show how like youthful he was. I remember that.
Oh, thanks for bringing that back. I had that.
You're welcome.
I had completely buried that for the rest of my life, but now it's there again. Thanks. Cleansing the palate a little bit, saving face. You had "I'll Be You" by The Replacements, best band that ever was, and "Stand" by REM. So those are big on the charts. Some other random stuff about 1989 that we need to talk about. Jethro Tull won the best metal category at the Grammys that year.
Metal. Wow.
Yeah, kind of showcasing how out of touch the Grammys had become at that time. Edging out Metallica, Mike, if you're curious. This was the year that Domino's told us to avoid the Noid.
Yes. Stupid.
There's a very dark turn to that avoid the Noid thing. That was a kind of a funny claymation, stop motion animation promotional thing for Domino's Pizza. But this guy, I think his name was Arnold Noid. His real name was Noid. And he had, of course, had mental problems. And he felt that this was some sort of a conspiracy against him and ended up committing suicide as a result of this.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So next time somebody laughs about avoid the Noid, just tell them that story and ruin their day. A stamp would cost you 25 cents. For those that aren't familiar, you used to have to put stamps on pieces of paper.
You had to lick them back in the day too.
You had to write with your hands on paper, put it in an envelope, and then put a stamp on it, and then someone would take it and drop it off for you.
Yeah.
The Dalai Lama won the Nobel Peace Prize that year. Big hitter, the Lama, Mike.
The Lama. Don't have a tip for you, but before you die, you will receive total consciousness.
So there you go. So that's kind of 1989 in a nutshell. So this movie was, I think before we go on, Mike, this movie I felt was just a perfect little time capsule, right? This was what the 80s were.
Oh yeah, like I said, the opening font, the opening scene, it just screams 1989 to me.
It also screams what the 80s couldn't be much longer.
Yeah. So
I think we should just kind of jump into it. So Mike, you ready to lay down the boogie and play that funky music all night long?
Yeah, because I don't fly; it's too dangerous.
All right, hit the button, Mike. Right in the throat. So the movie kind of opens up with this fancy New York nightclub, and we have to follow this Ferrari into the parking lot, and then there's that standard cut to the floor and see the high heels come out. And we follow this 80s AF woman into this club, and we're following
Tillman, the Double Deuce owner.
So Mr. Tillman, who's the owner of the club in Roadhouse, the Roadhouse, Mike, he's walking into the club and he sees this guy Dalton overseeing everything. This minor little brawl takes out, and he just dispatches it very quickly. And you can tell that he's on a recruiting mission. So he goes back into the dressing room after the little altercation and, talks to Dalton and makes him a proposition about, coming to his club, the Double Deuce. He's coming to some money, Mike, and he wants to upgrade the place. And
yes,
he wants to hire the best.
Had to mop off all the eyeballs every night.
That's right. Yeah. So it's very important for our audience to understand the terminology. He's not a bouncer. He's a cooler.
Yeah.
And the cooler is the guy who's the bouncer wrangler, right? He controls all the bouncers. So this is this is very important.
This is not William Macy in Vegas. This is a different kind of cooler.
So he offers him $5,000 up front and $5,000 a night. That gives him carte blanche to run it his way. And then he tells the club owner, says that he just quits with like no 2 weeks notice or whatever. Just there you go. The next scene is him showing up at the Double Deuce, and he meets his old friend Jeff Healy, who's the house band. Then there's stuntman fighting for about 12 minutes here, just okay, we get it. It's a bad place, right?
The opening scene is fantastic. I see what they were trying to do. Like the opening scene is kind of like the Copacabana scene in Goodfellas, where he's walking through, and it's just clean, like you said. New York is some bar in New York State, and it's clean, and it's how well run it is. And then you go to this place in, like I said, Rat's Ass, Missouri. Jasper, Missouri, and it's hilarious how many things they try to show you that are like just going wrong. There's the chicken wire, and there's the cocaine. There's the guys not wearing shirts dancing, and just constant brawling. What was the furniture budget of this place before Dalton showed up, man? Crazy. Like when I heard Dalton was going to get paid $500 a night cash, I was all, okay, that's a lot of money. But then when I realized how much furniture was being lost every night, I was like, okay, that's probably about even.
I think there was a global shortage of balsa wood after this movie.
Crazy.
So they're obviously trying to establish that this place is almost its own like third world country. It's every night. It's a combat zone every night. Swayze passively, very calmly, just oversees everything. The next day he goes out. He buys a car. He buys a bunch of extra tires. We'll get to that reason here in a little bit. He ends up renting a room from a local farmer named Emmett. He lives upstairs. And we also get introduced to the villain here. Across the lake from Emmett is Brad Wesley's mansion. Brad Wesley is this played by Ben Gazarra. And he's kind of like the local kingpin, the henchman, the mob guy. You know that because he wears a fedora, Mike.
That's right.
Or Panama hat a lot of time.
He likes to sing while he's driving his convertible. He almost hit people.
So the next night after the bar closes, this is where they do the cleanup here. And Swayze introduced himself to the Double Deuce crew, and he fires the drug dealers. He fires all the malcontents.
The skimming bartender.
Yeah. So he cleans house, and he gives his little pep talk to the bouncers on how they're supposed to handle these kind of bust ups from now on.
It's his way or the highway, Justin.
Yeah. He's like a pacifist, non-aggressive bouncer that has a degree in philosophy, Mike. Of course he does.
Of course.
All right, he ends up firing Brad Wesley's nephew, I think, the bartender, and like many great stories before him, this is the catalyst for the next, for the turn in the second act. This is where things go wrong. Now Brad Wesley has to intervene. They come back later, and he slashes his tires, and there's just at this point, Mike, there's just about 55 fights in a row. I kind of lost track of them.
It's like I say, the first and into the second act, it's just nonstop, just fisticuffs and just property damage everywhere,
Yeah. So one of those fights during the second act there leads Patrick Swayze to the emergency room where he's taken care of by emergency Dr. Kelly Lynch. Most ER doctors wear miniskirts, right, Mike? I was just curious.
Of course. Yeah, especially in the little town of Missouri.
Yeah. So guess what? She's got a backstory too, Mike. She's a ex-girlfriend of Brad Wesley.
Yeah.
So he's
that's another motive.
Yeah. So he's just stepped in it. He dig a hole, they say. It goes even deeper. But love is in the air. But she's got connections to Brad. Brad owns the entire town. He's everybody has to.
Yeah, I did a little background information on this, and Do you think? Do you think Brad Wesley can get this rich from shaking down the merchants of the small town? I mean,
Like,
the actual, I don't. They don't ever. I know it. I know they were getting a J.C. Penney's because of him, but like,
ask anybody, they'll tell you.
I guess so. I mean, it's not exactly one of the five boroughs of New York here. Yeah, how is he getting enough money from shaking down like Red's, Napa's, auto parts store?
Red has a mom and pop shop that can't be bringing in more than $150 a month.
Exactly, and then there's the boat store that was right across the street too. I mean, is he really in the Ford delership?
Yeah.
Is he getting enough money to live this lavish lifestyle and pay all his goons and buy their monster trucks and stuff? I mean, I don't. I don't understand.
There was a monster truck here as a regular vehicle.
Yes, I don't understand how this little town can support his little, his little thieving operation here.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like
racketeering.
Racketeering. Yeah. All right. Well, let's kind of proceed, see if it makes more sense as we go, Mike.
Okay.
So Dalton starting to understand that he's bit off a little more than he can chew here. So he reaches out to his old mentor, Wade Garrett, played by Sam Eliot. He shows up for like a reinforcement thing, and because there's a liquor distribution situation where Double Deuce is starting to do well. So Brad is spurned by Swayze to come work for him, and they keep pushing their luck with Brad. And so he takes away their liquor license, and he sends his goons over there to start smashing things up. And there's this wonderful fight there. Where we get to see Sam Eliot throw down.
Yes.
My favorite scene is when Sam Eliot shows up and the goons have got Patrick Swayze like arms behind his back. They're holding him while the fat guys punch him in the stomach.
Just beating the crap out of him.
And the guy asks Patrick Swayze as he's getting pummeled, "How do you like that, Kung Fu?" And then Sam Eliot kind of casually walks up and he's watching his friend get beat up. And he says to Terry Funk, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" And Terry Funk goes, "Mind your business, Dad." Terry Funk's probably older than Sam Eliot.
I know.
But there's this big beat down. Now we've got Wade Garrett kind of working at the double deuce too. And it's just great. Brad has had enough, and he burns down Red's auto shop, who Red is Carol Lynch's uncle, which is convenient. Then he shows up to the Double Deuce to try to make amends, I guess. And
I know he's causing trouble, Justin. He's got his little lackey doing the spinning pool cue trick, and he knows something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, so his main man, his right hand, is this guy named Jimmy. And Jimmy's got significant martial arts training and a significant afro hair, and he's just fantastic. Cross earring, which is about as 90s you can get, Mike.
Yes.
He beats everybody up like Darth Maul with a pool stick, that was a good scene. He's there to intimidate everybody, but all it really turns into is like a 7-minute or two of this nude tabletop scene by Brad's arm candy, which was weird. And then they're just more kind of intimidation, balance of the second act. Some guy in a monster truck from Brad Wesley's gang smashes the local car dealership up. That's good. They set fire to Emmett's house, which is not cool at all. And as that's happening, they go to save Emmett. He sees Jimmy running off on his little
whiny
little mini bike.
Yeah.
And this is the culmination. This is this fight scene everybody's been waiting for. This is where Jimmy and Dalton finally square off. And there's a pretty brutal, well choreographed fight scene. For the most part, Jimmy kicks Dalton's ass 5 ways to Sunday. What I like here, Mike, after landing several debilitating blows to Dalton, Jimmy announces that he's had carnal relations with men of similar ilk during a previous incarceration.
Was that a brag? Was that a humble brag there,
Yeah.
Justin? I don't know if that would be saying that to somebody in the middle of a fight, but hey,
Yeah. So that was funny. And then, Dalton counters by ripping the guy's throat out in front of his new girlfriend. And that's kind of the snakes on a plane moment for Dalton. So he says, enough of this. So he goes to invade Brad Wesley's house. And they're all expecting him, of course, Mike. They've all got their shotguns, and he kind of ambushes the place, drives his BMW.
He turns into Rambo.
Yeah, he sets it as, but it's a diversion, Mike, because he's,
Mercedes. Yeah.
His Mercedes is just driving. They can't find him. And at the end, he kind of one by one picks off all the bad guys in Wesley's gang, which is interesting because most of these deaths are done off screen, which is odd.
Yeah, like Terry Funk, poor guy.
I want to see Terry Funk get killed. Right?
I know, right?
So he takes out most of the bad guys, and like the Ben Gazarra is the only one left. And of course, the guy in his late 60s, the guy getting Dalton most trouble.
Yeah, he's pretty good with the little broken spear there. I was
Yeah.
surprised.
So the end fight is going. He beats Brad into submission, and he does that same kind of like grass thing where he's going to rip his throat out too.
The
And
claw.
like his humanity kicks in, and Kelly Lynch shows up, and he doesn't do it. And as he like turns his back, he grabs the gun. And then the rest of the local store merchants, they do like they have some country justice, Mike.
I don't know how they got in there. I don't know,
How they knew it was coming,
who invited him in, why they didn't help him on his original little infiltration of Wesley's house.
But they staged a coup and took out Wesley. And
they're there, yeah.
like everybody who had been wronged by Wesley got a chance to shoot him with a shotgun.
Yeah. It was like the end of it's like Murder on the Orient Express, not just one person. This is everybody killed.
Yeah. So that's we forgot to mention that Wade Garrett gets killed, and that's the Sam Elliot didn't make it, and that's what set Swayze off.
Oh
in
yeah,
the first place.
He has his Wyatt Earp moment in Tombstone.
Yeah. So like most things, murder sets it right, Mike. And at the end of the movie, it's just they're out in the lake, skinny dipping, making love. And
who was that real quick, right when Patrick Swayze's jumping into the lake? There's somebody sitting there with him, and I guess might have been in the 3.5 hour cut of it. We might have known like who's this perv watching these two skinny.
It's probably Emmett.
I figured it was Jeff Healey because since he was blind, they just brought him along.
Yeah, we'll call you on. What's going to matter? So that was it, man. So that was great.
It was something, yeah. Like I said,
else, wasn't it, Mike?
It was entertaining. I can't argue for that.
I'm not complaining at all. I just let's talk about awards and accolades. Then we can talk about our feelings about it, Mike. So this had a dismal $6 million opening, not real good. Ended up doing $30 million domestic. That was not released to the worldwide audience. It was contained or quarantined like a virus, Mike. It was not sent out to the rest of the world. But cable and video rentals really secured this movie's place in history. I challenge somebody over the age of 40 to say they haven't seen this movie at some point. It's just everybody has seen this at some point in their life.
Parts of it, or they know about it. They know who Dalton is.
It's been a staple on cable television since 1990, probably. It was nominated for 5 Razzies, didn't win any of them, so that's good. It beget a sequel, Roadhouse 2.
It's got to have Meatloaf in it, right?
The next best thing, Will Patton and Jake Busey.
Jake Busey, okay. It had a Busey in it, okay.
I have not seen this, Mike, but I read a brief synopsis to know what the deal was, and I think Jonathan Shake, the actor, he plays the son of Dalton, who's been killed, and he's a DEA agent.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So it broke canon. We talked about at the beginning of the broadcast. It's been rebooted with Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor. The trailer didn't look that bad to me. I'll probably watch it at some point, but I just need a little time to heal.
Right.
But it's getting very good reviews, so maybe we'll give it a whirl. But it looks like it's going to be not too terrible. But it was satirized with a off-Broadway release, Roadhouse the Musical in 2003.
Oh, wow.
And for a couple of years. It's generally on everybody's best bad movie list. It's the guilty pleasure for a lot of folks, including the host of Grumpy Nostalgia. Overall, made its impact on pulp culture one way or the other, Mike. So,
for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first time we saw it, and that'd be different for you, Mike. But let's talk about our take on the movie and what changed or whatever. So, Mike, you're up first.
Sure. Yeah. All I knew about it was references in pop culture, and most of it. This is the kind of movie that would come on. For some reason, it would come on around like Christmas time, and I always think of the MST3K song about the Patrick Swayze Christmas, and it kind of makes sense for me because that's the only time I ever saw parts of this movie. I never wanted to watch it because it just looks so banal and so empty of calories. It just looked like it was just kind of a fluffy swan song to the 80s. And which is what it was. But like I said, watching it now, it was entertaining. It's another one of those movies where you're watching going, okay, that was copied in that, and this was copied that. I'm saying this is watching this as somebody who saw Walking Tall, with Joe Don Baker. This movie was eerily similar. It's kind of like
that's the only name we needed to hear in this.
There you go. Yeah,
this
it kind of it works, right?
Yeah,
it's like, well, for me, it was like a Walking Tall meets Colt 45. It's like add in a kegger and you have Walking Tall with this movie.
Yeah,
but like I said, the Dalton character does kind of add some mystery and some enigma to it, so it's not a totally two-dimensional cardboard kind of cut out of a movie. And I really appreciate his role in that. And a lot of it seemed like there was a lot of gratuitous nudity that kind of we've talked about this in a couple other movies that we saw. It was like just if you were a late 80s, early 90s movie, you had to have boobs in it.
That was just part of the deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was in there. And the music was interesting. I was disappointed that it took them almost an hour to finally play Roadhouse Blues by the Doors and the cover song of that. So, it was, if I was going to rate it out of 5 stars, I would give it a good 3.5. I mean, it was entertaining for the entertainment value alone.
Yeah.
And just getting my head away from the fact that it's kind of just corny. I can see why it was when it was released originally in May of '89. Was it up against like a big movie at the time? Is that why it kind of flopped, or was it just bad marketing, like you said, being kind of a rom-com marketing campaign? Because
like we talked about earlier, it was up against Fright Night 2 in the theaters.
Okay, Fright Night 2. And
before that, you had not a whole lot. Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade came out 5 days later and kind of put it to bed.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe people were smart enough to see past the marketing campaign and say, hey, most guys would look at it and go, oh, Patrick Swayze. Kind of liked him in The Outsiders, but my goodness, why did he do that Dirty Dancing stuff? You know what I mean? Like, that's the way I'd be. I was like, wow, do I really want to see that guy dancing? And maybe he's in a movie about a bar and there's blues music.
Maybe that deceptive marketing backfired. It didn't get the.
It's possible. It would have, turned me off if I ever remember seeing it. But anyway,
that's a good take. That's a good take.
What do you think, man?
Well, the first time I saw this, I saw it in a dorm room with 25 other animals on my floor watching this thing. And I went to a relatively small state school in central Illinois. And what was interesting about that is this movie, I fear that this is what like most of the world thinks America is like. Like I kind of regretted doing this movie in a bit because I was thinking about our friends at Popcorn Kernels. I would love to cover this film with them so I can get their input as someone who's not American to get their take on this. But when I saw this movie in the theater with these people that lived in towns like this, to me this was an alien landscape. I had never seen this kind of environment before because I'm relatively suburban all my whole life. But the guys I watched this movie with the first time thought nothing of this. Like, oh yeah, I know places like this. So the situations and the ridiculous circumstances of this movie were not foreign to them. And I just felt really out of place. I did enjoy the movie for what it is. It's one of the best types of movies for what it is. It's one of those things where it's just there's no lulls. They just keep going. There's a bit of a drawn out romantic subplot that kind of slows it down a little bit. But for the most part, it's 50 stuntmen fighting for 2 hours. Which is, how bad can that be? But I thought I was just probably above it a little bit, but I still enjoyed it. So watching it again early this morning, the whole time capsule element really just stuck out to me. I'm like, wow, this really just took a picture of what the state of modern filmmaking was in 1989. This was the culmination of a lot of 80s movies with gratuitous violence, gratuitous nudity, misogyny. I mean, it was just loaded up with all that. It's unpalatable now, but if you watch it on its own vacuum, you can understand that this was a pretty well-made movie for the frame of reference it was designed to be. So I still enjoyed it, but I had a certain amount of guilt and shame attached to it for sure. I've watched this movie; it's been on cable forever, like I said. And I always watch a few minutes of it just to laugh at it or just to remember, the 22-year-old kid that was watching it, the camaraderie with my friends in the dorm room, just how much fun we thought it was to watch this movie, and I missed that. But Yeah, it's could never be made today.
Yeah.
We say that, but they just remade it. So that let's see.
Well, again, I don't
Yeah,
think it could be made in the same
in
style
the
or
context of
same.
it was,
Yeah, it's going to change a bit, so
So
it'd be kind of weird to see that.
maybe Jake Gyllenhaal cleaned it up for us, but we'll have to check it out. So this movie is most famous for its amount of fighting, guys. We mentioned that over 55 stuntmen were involved in some of the. There were 9 major set pieces, all involving fisticuffs, and
They had a they had a knife credit in the credits for they were thanking a knife designer, so that tells you something, right?
yeah, yeah. We started thinking about fight scenes in movies and how much they leave an impression on us. So for this week's installment of You Just Made the List, Pal. Me and Mike are going to talk about our favorite fight scenes in movies over the years. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead and knock it out first? Let's pick 3 and an honorable mention or so if you have a few of them. But let's talk about fight scenes over the years that have really kind of left an impression on us.
Cool. Well, my favorite movie that involves lots of fights is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh wow, yeah.
Came out in 2000. Probably, it's a martial arts kind of fighting, but it's really well done. The fact they did everything without using any kind of special effects. Everything's kind of done with wires, and it's really cool. Like the behind the scenes stuff is really neat to watch.
Almost like ballet. It
is.
Yeah.
It's off putting when you first see how they do it, and it's like okay, but then once you get into the movie, it becomes naturally like you just expect these characters to be able to climb up bamboo. It's like okay,
yeah.
But there's a lot of fighting in the movie. There's like one really famous fight between the 2 main female protagonist antagonist character. But one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when the young girl, Zhang Ji, I can't pronounce Chinese very well, so forgive me. But she plays a character named Jin Yu, who's like this young girl who's a princess, and she wants to like leave her family, and she's in this arranged marriage she wants to get out of. And her boyfriend is like a Mongolian warrior, lives out in the desert. But one of the scenes is her fleeing her arranged marriage, and she dresses up as this boy, and she wants to be one of the members of this warrior group. And they all meet at this inn or like bar, and it's like this pagoda shaped kind of bar. It's got like multi levels, and she dresses up. They only allow men in, so she dresses up as a boy and has their special sword, which is called like the green destiny, I want to say. But she feels invincible with the sword, so she goes in there, and it's one of the most amazing scenes because like these big guys see the sword and they're like, there's no way that little boy can carry that sword, and she just beats the hell out of everybody in there. And there's this incredible scene where she just kind of glides down the banister of the rail and goes all the way down to the bottom, and the whole way she's like fighting off like multiple guys using the sword. It's really an amazing scene, and that was that was the first thing I could think of when you mentioned this list. I was like, yep, that scene to me was just incredible.
She doesn't get nearly enough credit for how great she was in that movie. I mean, she got her recognition, of course, but I mean, it's still not enough. I mean, just the impact she makes, it really should be more legendary than it is, I think. So,
for sure.
That's a great one. That's a hard one to follow, Mike. Great pick. My first pick is going to be the American equivalent of that. Mine's going to be Ripley fighting the Xenomorph Queen at the end of Aliens. Where she had enough of this thing by this point, Mike. Wiped out her whole crew, almost killed her pretend daughter, took out Lance Henriksen, cut him in half, and she gets into this forklift suit, and she got an Academy Award for that performance. A lot of people forget that. It was a really emotional performance for her. All her motivation was by fear and anxiety and sadness and protecting this new daughter figure for her. And she really put layered performance together, and it was really emotional. So this is more than just a cool sci-fi fight. This is like this. She's fighting that thing for everybody in the audience. She's just so fed up with the terror that this thing has put on you for the last 2 hours, and some amazing special effects. Most of them practical. I think CGI wasn't a thing back then, but It's the thing everybody remembers about that movie, and just it's violent, and it's the backstory behind it that led to that just makes it all that more impactful. So,
Yeah.
to kick off the list, I'm going to pick Ripley fighting the Xenomorph Queen from Aliens from 1986.
Well done.
All right, what's your next one, Mike?
All right, we're gonna go back to Asia again, Justin, for another one.
Okay.
This one I was really late to the party on seeing this movie. I just saw it a couple of years ago. I got kind of caught up in the Squid Game phenomenon and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I started watching a lot of Korean stuff, and I'd never seen Old Boy before. So
Oh wow, yeah, there you go.
and I'd heard the American remake was kind of crap compared to the original. So I was like, well, I want to see the original. So it was the
Yeah.
one from 2003. It has probably one of the most famous like single shot fight scenes of all time. If anyone out there doesn't know the movie, it's about a guy who it's another thing. It's not just the fight scenes in this movie. It's the whole story itself is a revenge story, but it's a revenge story that's probably the most realistic revenge story you could see, as far as a guy who really goes to the ringer and just has to just fight his own demons. He's in prison. Yeah, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but he's imprisoned for a while in this hotel. You're not quite sure why he's in prison, but he's in there for like 15 years. And all he does is watch TV. Occasionally gets reports on like what's going on, but he doesn't know really what happened. He gets released, and he's told he has to figure out why he was in prison for 15 years, but he's given a time limit of 5 days. And so the rest of the movie is him trying to figure out who did this, why was he there, and that leads to this, amazingly just incredible ending. But in one scene, he's getting out of the hotel, or he's finding out like from one of the underbosses what's going on, and the scene that I'm talking about takes place in this hotel, and it's in this one corridor. And he faces this whole gang of it's countless. It's probably 20 to 30 guys, and it's like I said, it's all one single shot in this narrow corridor, and he's facing them kind of Black Ninja style, one at a time. But he's just dispensing with them, and it's not just done in fits and starts. Every encounter has like some kind of awkward like pause in it, where like they can see like, okay, what I'm going to do with you, and then he just takes them on one at a time instead of just like sweeping through them. It's just it's like I said, it's almost done like a 2D platformer game for part of the filming, and then it goes above it, and then you're like a point of view capture. It's amazing filmmaking, and actual just him. Just is very violent. He's using hammers against the guys. Are all equipped with weapons. It's not just fisticuffs, but it's just amazing scene. And like I say, it's probably one of the most famous parts of the movie itself. But the movie on its own is fantastic. So I recommend Old Boy.
Yeah, that's a great one. You can tell the influence on that on a couple of scenes later with the 300 did that a lot too. They do that stutter step. And then they would like go through super fast.
Right.
And even the hallway scene at the end of Rogue One, where Vader finally gets to be a villain and just starts wiping out everybody down the hallway. I mean, you can see that influence there for sure. So that's a good one, Mike. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, Mike, but it's my podcast, so I don't care.
All right.
I'm going to have a tie for my second one here, and they both involve Paul Newman. So
okay.
Okay, my first one is the fight between him and Ted Cassidy in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, where he wants to take over the gang, and he said he could always challenge him. This is the rules in a knife fight scene where he just kind of walks up and kicks him in the crotch, and just an amazing fight scene there. It's just one punch, one kick and one punch, and it's over. But the context of that fight is so well imprinted on my brain. I love that fight, and it's one of the most favorite fight scenes of all time. My second one is also Paul Newman. It's the scene from Cool Hand Luke, right, where he's fighting Dragline, played by George Kennedy. And up until this point in the movie, they've been having this contentious relationship, and they finally make him get in the ring and fight each other. And what I love here is like he gets the crap kicked out of him. George Kennedy's like 50 times bigger than him. But it's the famous thing about this scene is Paul Newman just keeps fighting. He won't stay down. He keeps getting up and throwing these weak punches. He's barely conscious, and he kind of wins this fight by losing. He realized Kennedy realized that he can't stop this guy. He would have to kill him. And it's just changed the dynamic of their relationships with the rest of the movie. And just a great scene. It's like 90 seconds of just pure genius. Paul, I think this is Paul Newman's best role. I think it's the best role in movie history, quite frankly. But I thought that was worthy of remembering. So from Cool Hand Luke from 1967, that's the other Paul Newman fight scene I really like. So there you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Let me throw some honorable mentions at you.
Yeah.
Snatch. Brad Pitt plays this, a role of like a piker. He's a gypsy. He's asked to like go down in the very first round of the fight, and of course he doesn't. He's kind of like One Punch Man in the movie. He just beats the snot out of somebody, and everybody's like upset at him. It's just funny. It's just funny fight scenes in that movie.
Yeah.
My Bodyguard.
Didn't think of that one. Shit.
Yeah, the whole movie revolves around little Christopher Makepeace, this little nerdy guy named Peach Fuzz or whatever.
Yeah.
Who has to, and ultimately he has to face his fears and fight the bully at the end, who's played by Matt Dillon. Leads to a nice little set piece at the end. Yeah.
Great.
Superman 2, when he finally gets his powers back at the end, he's able to beat up the truck driving bully guy. He doesn't punch him, but he first has his hand broken, and he spins around his seat, and then he slides him down the counter into the pinball machine. Love it. We have Nick and Kevin fighting in lawn tools in the movie Hobgoblins in the front yard of Kevin's house.
Deeper cut, but I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my faves. Yeah. But ultimately, my favorite is a Clint Eastwood movie. You have Paul Newman, I have Clint Eastwood in there. Mine kind of came down to a tie, but ultimately only one has a really good fight in it. But you could pick any fight from either one of these movies. Every Which Way But Loose, and Any Which Way You Can. Both kind of revolve around Sandra Locke being taken hostage, and him having to. I think in the first one he has to actually fight like a biker gang, and just rescue her from there. And the second one, which was kind of the sequel, Any Which Way You Can, he has to fight off like a mafia kind of figure. He's trying to set him up for this big fight between him and this big goony guy. That's and the big goon guy kind of like steps in and says, "It was these are bare knuckle brawls they're setting up," and they actually team up and fight off the mafia guy who, coincidentally had also taken Sandra Locke hostage. But you
should be more careful at some point.
Yeah, even though they didn't do the bare knuckle brawl like that was set up by the mafia guy, they decided, you know what? Let's have a fight at the end anyway. And it was kind of like the way that Rocky 3 ends, where Apollo Creed is, Rocky face off at the very end. Sure. It's the same thing. I mean, it's a great fight. They really. It's kind of like the end of Blazing Saddles, where they end up going through different places, and it's not played for laughs, but it's a comedy kind of movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's one of those silly HBO movies I watch 100 times, and I always remember that fight scene between the two, and really well done. So there you go. Any Which Way You Can.
That's a great one, given the fact that Eastwood had to find orangutan chow the whole time.
That's right. Right turn, Clyde.
Where do you find that? All right, that's a great pick, Mike. So my favorite one here is coming up shortly, but I have some honorable mentions too. Like any Jackie Chan movie before he came to America. I mean, you could put those as right at the top of the list for all time. King Arthur versus the Black Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail from 1975. I mean, that's iconic as well. I mentioned this before, so I'm not going to count it, but any fight between Inspector Clouseau and his man, Kato. I've mentioned my affinity for those fight scenes before. Mike, I'm surprised you didn't talk about James Bond and Jaws from Moonraker. That was a pretty good fight. Yeah. No? Okay.
No Jaws.
My real pick here is Indiana Jones fighting the plane mechanic at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, yeah. The BFG. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've talked about our love for this movie, and I started to really analyze this fight scene and how much it meant. This is that movie in a nutshell. It's our disheveled hero who's in the wrong place at the wrong time. He'll do anything to win a fight, but he's still a hero. He's overpowered. He gets through using his wits mostly. Just the sheer brutality of the German and the blood and the sound effects of the punches at this point.
Oh yeah.
And it's all done in the most climactic scene of the movie. And this upstages even all that. This big set piece where a plane's blowing up and they're stealing the Ark and all this. You just put that away to focus on this fight between these two guys. And Harrison Ford has probably never been as more at his best during the scene, and it's just the combination of the score and the sound effects and just the rapid edits of the scene just really stick with me, and that's just one of my favorite scenes of all time. So my favorite fight scene is Indiana Jones beating the crap out of that German plane mechanic in Raiders of the Lost Ark from 1981.
And I just remembered one more honorable mention I want to throw out there. It was Julie Haggerty fighting off Otto, the autopilot in Airplane. That was one of my favorite scenes.
All right, take it easy. He had grounds if you saw the scene before that. All right. Well, I think that's the bottom. I think we hit that from nice and solid. So let's talk about some other things. So if you like what you heard today, make sure you follow us on social media. You can check us out on our social media page on Instagram, where it's at Grumpy Nostalgia. You can send us an email at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. That's going to kind of wrap it up, Mike. Anything else you want to?
Do you need a great Buick?
And Mike, just don't eat the great big white mint in the urinal there.
In the urinal, yeah.
All right, so for Mike James, this is Justin, and we will see you again next time.
Big Bad Dalton.